Hello everyone. I have a really fun devlog video to share with you. Um, this is a really cool system that I've been working on only just this week, but it's been the culmination of lots and lots of just thinking about it over the years and thinking about what I need and stuff like that. Um, but just totally uh, kind of prototyped and experimented to just kind of feel out how to how to do it once, really, because I've never ever tried to do a system like this, and it's been really cool. So, what are we looking at, dear Guyan? What are we looking at? Well, as you may be seeing, there's things flickering around, and there's gold diamonds everywhere, and it happens to be that if I click spacebar, blink, the purple guy moves somewhere else. Turns out the purple guy is us guys. Um, and just like what we were seeing before, the uh, little yellow diamonds are flickering around, and sometimes we see some people. Um, so then, what are we seeing? What's going on here? Why does sometimes there's cubes, sometimes there's not cubes? Um, yeah, what's all this? So, what we're looking at is my first attempt at trying to make a world state system. Oh, world state. What that means is that, contrary to a lot of games, I assume a lot of games, simpler games that you don't need to think so complicated, um, you just make it so that, these pink guys, these pink people running around, um, teleporting around, uh, they're them. And so then, when they're, in a different level, they're not there, they don't exist. And when you go into that level, they're there. Um, but that's not the case for some games. Some games you need to have these things, these characters doing stuff out in the void of beyond your sights, without, of course, having to run like every level with all the graphics and all the sunlight and all the shadows and physics of every weapon and gun and jiggle cloth on every guy's armor. You, of course, need to pare that down into a reasonable thing. So, as you may know from things like World of Warcraft and stuff, or any of those ginormous sandbox games, Minecraft or anything, you can very much find yourself with this huge streaming system and there's servers running all sorts of stuff in the background, and kind of that's what I have been semi-forced to have to start doing. But I wanted to do something to really facilitate just like world creation, like um, uh, in this, uh, it kind of looks more like a dungeon with rooms, but as you can see with this, big blue one, you could have a region of these, little things that I'm teleporting between these little ground places, actually be a quite an astronomically large thing. Turns out that this everything that we've been seeing, this like say dungeon where these yellows are moving around, is actually just one more room, just one single room with all the rooms inside of it. So just like that giant world awareness of World of Warcraft, where there's hundreds of servers paying attention to 700 different regions and subregions, we do. We have, let me click, we have uh, this first route, and then we have all of these smaller regions inside. And as you can now see, we have little collider guys in here. And so what happens is when these guys choose to move rooms, they'll move and enter that room by very simple terms. Um, and maybe they're sometimes they lose. focus and they stop moving. But sometimes they just really have a long. See, and then I kick them back in when I. Oh, maybe not. There we go. Someone moved. There we go. So what is this? How do you do this? How do you even conceive of some of this stuff? Well, really, all I started with was um, pulling up my trusty hierarchy and just out uh, in the middle of nowhere, I create an empty um, and I put a box in it, and you can call that floor if you wanted to, and I uh, made it 20 by 20, and then I called this a region. Um, and then it's like, well, this is a region of something, a world. So then, you just put that inside a world. And so now you have a world with a region. And it's like, okay, so this region, we're gonna just for example's sake, we're gonna make it 200 by 200. So that's 200 meters by 200 meters. What would that be? Is a kilometer 1,000? Anyways, many meters. Um, and so then, your little character, if I find my little player over here, uh, put him here. There's a lot of world out there. So like, you imagine maybe this is a giant field or something, or like in the mountains. And it's like, well, in a field or out in the mountains, you may have, you know, a, a trench or like a little tunnel, like an ant hole, or, um, you know, what's another good example? Yeah, like a building, a cottage or something like that. Well, I mean, you're going to go on, that's just a tunnel, right? So you could just call this a tunnel, right? um, and that tunnel's inside the field, and now you have a region inside of a region tunnel and region field. Um, and it's like, well, that tunnel might have like some sort of like boss chamber, and it's like a big room with tons of graphics and stuff like that. So then you go like region tunnel boss room kind of thing, right? And it's like, well, a boss room isn't the same as a field. And it's like, well, is the boss room inside the tunnel? And is the tunnel inside of the field? And is the field inside of the world? Then yeah. So then it's like, well, what if you want multiple tunnels? Or two other tunnels? Or let's have 5 tunnels. And then it's like, well, I want a cottage. So then we're going to have region cottage. And it's like, oh no, the cottage has a secret under room hole. Cottage crawl space. So all of a sudden you start to realize that this is a pretty easily replicated thing. As far as you can imagine a space, it can be either uh, a bigger space that holds little spaces inside of it, or little spaces that are just inside bigger spaces, which are inside bigger spaces. Because I mean, you go, hey, this is just the one field here, but we're going for real March. So then you start going, oh, okay, we're gonna have these side by side, and you're gonna do like this long stretch, and it's like, well, inside each one, it has tunnels and a cottage, and you know, but it's all inside this world. So it's like if I just disable this world, all of it goes away and all of it comes back, right? So, well, we've kind of identified a very particular shape, and what that is what is it? Region, little prototype prefab, and what is it? It's exactly what we described. There's the region that it is, and I have some teleport destinations. I have space for when you want to put units, and then I have the active stage, which is this cube. We'll talk about the active stage in just a second, but just like what I had described, I can just put this region inside of another region, and I could go to over here, and I could go to materials and go blue, and then I can go prototype and put that inside this guy, and then move them over here and do deep grass. And then I can just put another one inside the other one. And we're going into this manor layer by layer into the deeps. But each manor, let's see, where is it? Each manor floor can oversee the manor floor below, and enemies can still fire at you, let's say. There's no enemies firing when you're coming up, but they can fire at you from below, let's just say. Shh. I'm doing this for you, so don't judge me. So, we have all of these regions inside of regions inside of regions, and, well, I also happen to have a world prefab. And so then you put the regions inside the world, and so then you can go, voila. And here we're starting to find ourselves in a similar position where we have these rooms, and they're inside of each other and stuff like that. And so then I went one step further, a little bit further, and I went, well, a world is only really comprised of all of these rooms. So arguably, like a game like World of Warcraft, you can just stitch it together into one enormous world map that never ends and never begins, and it's just infinite in all directions, kind of thing. Not quite Minecraft. I just mean like you just make it huge, just huge, and contains every space in the game. But I went, well, in the particular game that I'm trying to make, is like sometimes you go off and you do mini games and you go do stuff that involves kind of shutting down time, controlling a different character, doing something completely different. Driving a car down a street, and then you're somewhere else, and now you don't use the car anymore. So then during those times, it's basically what would you describe the difference is that's when you're not doing live, you know, running of that particular world. So, you have an overworld where people are walking around and talking, but then you have a nightmare world where you're in a dungeon and everything in that world is just disabled until the next morning or whatever. Um, those would be arguably two different worlds, right? Um, so, well, guess what? It would be. Oops. And now I have overworld, say roadway world and Wartato world. Um, and so these are actually just those sub pieces broken up into pre-makes. And in doing so, um, I'm kind of doing one next step, which is now you can run, in this particular case, the one that I'm showing you, the prototype. Um, and it didn't exist. I didn't have to have it in the level and make it in the level. I could simply pull it up as a pre-make, and well, just like the thing, you see our base world. So this could be all of the how do I do this quickly? Taking a little bit of inspiration from Del Lago Layover. Let's see. Quick. Here we go. There we go. Asphalt bricks. Say this is the city around. And so these would be, some big low poly. I mean, Square is pretty low poly in the surroundings because, save. Every room inside of this game world needs to be able to, say it's an office building, needs to be able to see outside to the environment around, so that never needs to be removed. And so then here's the kind of the logic of how it goes is like if you're going from broad areas to smaller areas, oops, this is like a main room, maybe a hallway with a bunch of finite rooms that don't go anywhere. And so then when the doors are closed or whatever condition you want to say, they don't exist and stuff like that. But still, you can have a sniper in there waiting to ambush you or, items to pick up. And it's like, well, how do you know there's items in there? And it's like, well, the system has to already say, well, of the 55 million places I could put items, this is going to be an item spot uh, today. And that's the item activated there saying, hey, I'm not anywhere else in the world but right here. And that starts becoming the definition of your world. So if this thing here can start to rot because it's an apple on the counter, well, this needs to be able to know that it's rotting even though it doesn't quote unquote exist. You can't see it, you can't pick it up. There's no graphic, there's nothing, no colliders, there's nothing um, until uh, you're walking in, you go, I'm going to check this room. And it's like, oh shit, there's an enemy right here. Oh God, there's two enemies. And it's like, oh, that enemy jumped out the window and went somewhere else, right? Oh, there goes the other one. And it's like, oh no, where are they? And it's like, well, time to start like looking around. It's like, oh, this isn't the guy I was thinking, but holy. So all of a sudden, these characters and these things have a broader persistence even outside of the stage, is kind of what I'm calling it, the active stage, which is the thing that gets presented to you, the audience, to us, the player, the big P. Um, and so then by being able to break these things down into these rooms, um, you can sequence things out. In some people's world, you go from the basement upstairs to the main floor, the ground floor. And it's like actually it would kind of be the reverse. It's not quite, going up to this perch up here, but this could be the basement because there's no further things or, the bathroom of the basement, which is this main living room, and you'd have bedroom over here and bedroom over there and stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, if you're not in the bathroom, um, there's no need to be there. But then you could just make an entire party sequence that's just in the house, and as long as you don't allow the player to come out to the field outside your house, well, you can make a whole simulated place where these characters are walking around, talking to each other. They respond when you throw bottles on the ground and stuff like that. Um, and even if you're not, even if you're just in the bathroom because your character's puking in the toilet, the characters can come around and check how you are, or give you water or whatever. And all of a sudden, the potential of this starts opening up. Um, the thing that's cool is that having the control over this, you can of course put all sorts of triggers and events so that like when you move into a room, uh, stuff can happen, or you can update things or check stuff. Um, so then when you enter a room, you could say make a custom, these are just called regions, world regions, but you could make a custom world region, which I'm kind of in the future hoping to try and do, which is when that region exists, it generates a random dungeon and lets you enter it somehow in the same way of being able to go like that and move your character in to that dungeon. Um, and so then it's like all of a sudden it's like, well, in front of you placed all the logic and the reason of like, oh, what region is inside what, and oh, the basement is this and the bathroom is that, right? Well, how do you get a dungeon generator to be able to make those same kinds of formations but still facilitate you uh, getting what you want? So it's like, well, yeah, you're not quite like teleporting from room to room. You have to be able to walk past a threshold and enter one or the other and stuff like that. And it's like, you can still do that. It would just be a matter of not just floating the random boxes all over the place like I'm doing. Um, but what this is the proper, or at least not the proper, it's a definitive delineation between um, the game world's existence and the high detail theatrics and action that's going on right around you. So then these characters actually, and it's you can't really see it, but it's being proven, is when they're live like this, they're using um, just update, uh, active update. I'm just calling it, but it goes up to just an original one that's just on update. So that's just how normal games go. The character exists, and so then it runs around and punches you and smashes you and all that stuff. But when they pop away and they vanish like this, they actually go into a passive state. And so when they pew, 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 when they are when they're in active mode or in passive mode, they actually do different things. The actor gets disabled, and so all of the pathfinding and all of the sight uh, detectors and is disabled or enabled, to be active. But then passive mode connects to, all the passive stuff, and passive update is something that's meant to run in the background. So while you're having this high octane fight here in this room, these guys are still having to process, I'm hungry, I need to find food, and, oh, I'm regenerating some health. Oh, I died from not regenerating the health. I had poison and I died. See, and all of a sudden, you realize, well, yeah, that matters because if you kill this guy and then, this guy was dying of poison over out here, well, you want that to actually be killing them out there because when you turn around and start fighting them, they better be more than dead because you poisoned them 10 minutes ago and they ran away and escaped or something. Um, so that persistence works in an action sense and also an optimization way, but it also works for other game purposes. If you need to run a character on a schedule and actually have them navigate around, you can make sure that they get to the places that they are getting to in the structure of the game. And then when you enter that part of the place, oh, hey, they were supposed to be brushing their teeth. Well, look, they're on their way or already there or whatever, because we have a thing that says, well, they're 40% of the way through brushing their teeth. And that means something, I guess. Um, and so then again, this ginormous world, this broader world, can have people going to the grocery store. A guy's about to go hang gliding over here. This person has to do their dishes still, like you were having to do, and on and on. You can have all sorts of these world states, these region states going on without it having graphical loads, without it having animation loads, without it having physics and all that stuff. And that's done, as I was showing you, by having passive updates which have a very low resolution thing. You rock, paper, scissors characters against each other until one of them dies, or uh, the active mode where you are doing real game, high octane, pathfinder round, jump off the tree, eat the fruit, generate your stuff, and all those things, right? Um, and so then this allows me to just really quickly, arguably, um, pop in to my overworld, say go to this region one, and maybe I actually made this region one a prefab, and you can double click to go into it, to see. This is just the raw version, but you go into it, and then that allows you to do collaborative development. That's an important thing for scaling up the game project, um, because then you're not conflicting files. But then, what was I getting at? Oh, yeah, like on the active stage itself, you can put, uh, cubes around, block and oh, put the block and it's a, what is it? Block? Oh, here we go. Oh, oh, I see. It got the same size as everything. Um, pew, 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 pew. You have a bunch of blocks, and uh, some of them are explosive. Uh, oh, I guess that's a bad example. Some of them are made out of people, and then you get a trigger. I mean, I don't have any of this in this prototype, but trigger, and it's what is it? You turn this off, it's a trigger. You make it a big thing that's like, if you go in here, it's gonna start a cutscene, and all of a sudden, here I'll even save it. Not that any of this stuff will do anything, but when I run it, uh, oops, uh, oops, oops. Oh, look, there's my blocks, and there's my collider. So then you see that you can actually just build a region like a level, but all of a sudden they're becoming nested within each other. They're neighbors to each other. Region 1 and Region 2 are just neighbors. So if one doesn't need to exist for the other one to exist, you can just make all the regions neighbors instead of going down the tunnel of craziness. Like, it doesn't have to go deep or wide or any which way. It just understands what's in it and then lets those things run, either high resolution or low resolution. And here we have little AIs running and saying, hey, I'm doing low 1 second, every 1 second updates, versus I'm doing it every delta time, if you know that stuff. Um, and so then you have the two different granularities. So then I'm hoping, this is a bit to come, that I can start hooking these up to principles of optimization, object pooling. Well, it's an entity system, so you can do burst stuff where you're multi-threading and slamming that thing through the factory. And in doing so, you can have just the regular live game that would otherwise be playing, easily runnable, easily for your character to just pop in and load into the level, into the place, only into as far as they need to exist. And with production, you can make all sorts of things where it slowly loads all the rest of the world, as it's not that important while you're like, standing around getting killed by pink guys right here. Um, but all of this is meant to just be quick, so that, yeah, you can just slap together a world region, and then just once it's ready to be put in and added to the mix, you just add it to this overworld, for example, and continue to expand on this world, um, knowing that it will all, well, in the future, I don't quite have things like saving and stuff. It will all save, it will all load, it'll all keep the game running even when it's not visible. And then you can just start adding on to it. And like I was saying, do rock, paper, scissors, keep track of things dying or regaining their health, finding items and things like that. Uh, the dream goal of this is to make Awakened Guardian, which is a simulation hunter-gatherer simulation game. So I want to have birds going and making nests at nesting tree points. And if you go find where the bird nested, you can go and kill the nest and get the egg. But if the bird survives, then it'll make a new nest. But if you kill the bird, you get different things, feathers, bird meat, but then it won't make the nest. So then the eggs will be less frequent until the bird population, again, while you're out in this dungeon over here, struggling in this dungeon full of undead pinkzoids, um, way past all of these bluffs of fantasy are a bunch of other things running. you know, you were over there earlier, and the birds are repopulating, and, you know, your industry is crumbling and all that stuff because you're over here. Um, and so I'm so excited. I'm probably rambling at this point, but I'm so excited because all of a sudden it's like, oh, now that I have this, I can upgrade Del Lago Layover, the new one, and I can upgrade some people's worlds so that I can actually just have a chain of worlds, just chain and chain and chain, and go from thing to thing. Um, you can make some of these regions just have an entire game in its own way, and then just all it does is it teleports you to the next region or wherever you need to go to get out of the game. And if not that, if it's an elaborate game where nothing is the same, then you just swap worlds and it just saves where you're at, sitting in front of the arcade machine. And well, when you exit the arcade machine, well, you're just back at the arcade machine, just standing in front of it. So I'm really, really excited for the potential that this will bring. And, there's lessons to be learned and optimization and scaling and blah, 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 blah to happen. But this is a really clean start to what I was doing earlier, which was just slapping levels to just happen and pop in, and who knows if 20 levels are loaded or none of them are loaded. So I've been rambling, but a cool thing about this is that I was saying the structure, the regions within regions, that's actually a common programming structure called recursion. It's used for flood filling pixel art and all sorts of other things for checking if a dungeon has holes in the walls, or to find the voids and just remove that from a map. Lots and lots of cool things happen in recursion, and so what happens is I recursively step up, through these floors until I find a common branch heritage. So, in the case of switching to this part of the branch from this one, the common branch for these two is this one. So if well, here we go. If I swap over, all it did was unload one room because all it had to do was step one up and then go. Um, but, oops. Like that first hop, I'll show you here from this initial one, when I hop all the way over there, the common branch is actually the blue. So it removed the entire, starting from this first platform that was the other side, this one, um, going down all the way that way, I disabled everything. And that's coming from the middle of the branch going down. But in the teleport where I blink over as well, so I was going backwards from the middle of the branch, I go from the destination, say it was here, but it's over where this little gold guy is. When I blink over there, it actually starts from the bottom up, where it starts from this tip of the branch and works its way up, activating up and up and up and up. So it actually activates up and up and up and up while simultaneously cutting a branch right where it needs to and disabling everything that doesn't need to exist anymore, without what I used to do in the past is I don't know how to delineate, where that all ends. So just disable the whole map and then only enable the branch from the bottom up, and then disable everything and then, only from the bottom up. But of course, that ends up being that when the world is huge, you're disabling 7,500 regions when all you needed to do was just take 2 steps up and sever like 3. So that is kind of the brunt of everything. I guess one of the things that I wanted to describe, and I said it, was the active stage is separate from things like, say, the entities, because when you put the entity in, it has, this capsule of all these things. It's got the AI and stuff that tells it to move. But the entity itself actually has, oh, where were you? Where are you, 2704? 2704? Oops. Come on. 2704. It has a actual unit actor inside of it. And so then that actor is that pink thing, the pink little battalion guy that can fight and do complex things. And yeah, they're just disabled like the stage is. Um, and that's how you can have 2704 actually operating and nourishing and restoring its health without having to walk around or do anything or fight or be anywhere, because it is actually just an entity that has all sorts of knowledge of itself. And then the actor that represents that knowledge when we actually have to put, steel to armor kind of thing. Um, and so then when they finally are in the world here, um, both are acting in tandem. The entity is there for 4917, and the puppet is there, running away. And that's how you can make the experience of simultaneously having the live uh, combatants and actors and live gameplay with a greater world that somehow can exist all at once without being unrealistic towards running on a computer, right? Like, how do you run every grass blade and wind gust, right? This is a little bit of how. So, I hope I covered a lot. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but this was a really exciting one. My brain is kind of mush because I've been at this for a few days, and there's so many cool ways that one could build off of this. There's R trees, which are spatial trees, and they can kind of break apart where all the actors are relative to each other and optimize when areas get updated and when they don't, based off how close they are and far they are from everything else. Yeah, like I was saying, there's object pooling, so the only pink actors are just pink actors ready to be 2701 or 2704. But this pink actor is just a pink actor waiting to just show up and be ready to fight. And then now that they vanished, or, oh, this is still 2704. If it was a different character, where are all of these? Yeah, 4917. Now that 2704, oh, yeah, now that 2704 is somewhere else, um, the pink guy that is 2704 becomes the other person, 4917. Um, so what actually ends up happening in the game, I'm rambling still, is that you only have like 5 people running around in the game. It's just whenever you encounter any of the millions of people, one of those 5 show up and pretend to be that person until they get disabled and then, show up again as 5077 now as someone else. Um, and with that, I'm going to be taking some strides into an enormous world that has all sorts of cool persistence that, when you teleport somewhere else and that zone ends, the live stuff saves so that the passive stuff can keep updating from where it was. I would love to move towards having multiplayer where it can update 2 areas simultaneously live, or whatever that means, but that's down the line. That's down the line. This has just been cool enough. So I hope you had some cool insights in how to see this. This was pure prototype, so this does not connect to any of my gameplay stuff, but is ready to be plugged into, my puppet actors that you've been seeing me develop, triggers in the world, actual 3D models and environment. I don't say it, but each one of these regions have a companion called a lazy loader. And so when it pops into the world, it can be a really high, you have like 57 million blocks. Um, and what would happen is that they would only appear gradually so that the computer doesn't chug. Um, and so then when we come back there and they pop back in like that, um, no struggle on the system. And with that, you have a game world system. Put time and weather over top. Again, that can be pretty global because when you're inside a building or outside, if you're looking out the windows, you can see the rain. And then you have a canvas, an enormous, rich canvas to just start plopping terrain, make a character run around. And ideally, this would just run in the background, just kind of quietly just doing its thing and running and operating. So hopefully this gives me a much more stable starting point to return to the Genome games and start from scratch cleanly, executing all of this stuff so that there's always a world place that you can be. There's always a place you can return to. There's always a default place to start up with. And whatever world you seek to have unravel, even if it doesn't have to update when it's disabled, you can just make it not do anything. Um, that this serves as a really robust foundation for thinking of shaping the greater world around singular levels. And with that, you could even just go like each single little block is just a level, and when you beat that level, it just sends you to the next one, right? Like this is a very versatile pattern to work from because the only thing that really matters is that as much of it can just be automated and detected and scanned on its own so that, yeah, you don't have to worry about making the character change from room to room. You just walk from room to room and it'll do that, of course. Um, so yeah, I hope with that it gives you some insight into how you may do some more complicated systems, or how some of the complicated systems like Witcher, or Skyrim, Fallout, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, any of those, do it. This is a small modicum, a prototype from a first-time doer, um, and it's got some cool things to it. So definitely look into some recursion stuff. Definitely look into you know, how you can reduce steps to accomplish stuff so that when you have it scaled up to hundreds and hundreds of rooms and thousands of vases and pots and lamps and lights and sound emitters and ground crunch detectors and everything can load in, even though there's billions of them in the grand total of your game. This is how it starts. So thanks for watching. I hope you got some fun, and I'm really bad at the goodbyes, so bye.